There's different levels of preparedness that you can go through to cover different scenarios and different situations, which is what we tried to show on this bug out.
This is the gear I brought on our extended bug out. I packed everything in this large pack. This smaller pack right here collapses down very small. So after I hiked everything in, I busted out the small pack, loaded up everything I needed for the day when we went out to go scout for water, food, and just loaded up in the small pack so I could hike around a lot more easy and leave this one back at the base camp. Anyways, I brought just the essentials. Obviously you want to bring firearm. Like I said, I brought a 12 gauge. Tons of variety as far as ammunition, so that's going to be my favorite.
All right, this is some of the gear that I brought. I'm going to start with the rifle. On some of the previous stuff we've done, I used a 12 gauge, and on this one I chose to use my short barreled AR-15. The reason that I like it is it collapses down, it's lightweight. I've got 30 rounds of ammunition all in the gun by itself. I have a nice little muzzle brake there to tame it down. Got my triangle grip, and if you want a rifle this short, you do have to have a tax stamp. I put mine in the grip of the pistol. It's a nice place to keep it. That way I'm always legal. I always have my paperwork with me. And anyway, that's what I've got.
We also brought some food. This is just an example. I brought a ton of MREs as well. This right here is bannock bread. This is just some flour, oats, sugar, salt, just anything else you want to really add in there for flavor. And you pretty much just mix this with water, cook it up on a skillet or a hot rock, and it turns into bread. So it's delicious, it's quick, easy to make. It's not going to spoil if you put it in it's not going to spoil for a while if you put it in an airtight Ziploc bag like I did. And yeah, I mean, it's a great opportunity to get some calories.
The bag I used is called a Carramore SF bag. It's a British Special Forces bag. It is one of the most comfortable bags I've ever used to carry a heavy load. This says a lot. I worked as a forward observer for about 7 years for the military. They get ridiculous about the stuff that they want to throw on your back and have you carry. I wish I had something like this. One of the good things about it are these side pouches are removable. The bag zips and expands so that it can get larger and smaller. And I put in this bag right here. This is an external waterproof carrier. I sprayed it a little bit with tan spray paint so that it's more camouflage.
So let's go into the bags I have, or the things I have in my bag here. Brought the 4.7s 360 headlight kit. This right here is an awesome little headlight. It works good for ball caps too. You can kind of use it on the side of your head and it spins every which way. There's tons of different lights you can stick in it. It's awesome.
Let's talk a little bit about this light that I've been using. This is the Phoenix HL50, it says right there. And the awesome thing about this is I can use a lithium CR123 battery, or I can use a AA battery. I have a AA lithium battery in here because I just happen to have an extra one in my bag. So one really good thing about this is it works as a headlamp, or you can pop it off and use it individually. I haven't pulled it all the way apart, but it pops off and you can just use it all by itself.
Let's see, you got just a ton of food, like I said, camera. Here's my ham radio. It's a little Baofeng. It's cheap, it's easy. Batteries run forever. Some insulation. Brought some ton of cord, Paracord, 550 cord, whatever you want to call it. Fire starter, flint and steel, as well as a whistle.
The other bag that we discussed earlier today is this Geiger rig. I like to use a 2-bag system so that I can have an empty small bag or a ribs pack that I can use to go downrange and go outside and do what I'm going to do after I've set my main bag up.
So I brought the Katadyn Vario water filter. This water filter specifically has 3 filter elements: a debris filter, a ceramic filter, and a fiberglass / carbon core filter. This thing can pump through, like I said, 500 gallons of water before you need to change out the filter. And the filters are moderately cheap. You can hook it up to a lot of different kinds of systems. I hooked this up to my Nalgene bag. The threads here on the bottom of the Vario accept Nalgene threads, the big wide mouth Nalgenes. Super easy to use, and it worked really well when I was using it.
Okay, communications. I have this little bag. You always have these little pieces and parts to connect to different antennas when you deal with ham radio. and I threw it all in here. I've got the cigarette lighter adapter. I have a roll-up J pole or a Slim Jim, which is just a big wire that you hang from a tree. The general rule with ham radio is either you make it taller, you get a better antenna, or you add more wattage. I chose this one because it's waterproof. This is a Yaesu VX8R. They have newer versions of it. Again, this little bag right here, it's just full of all your junk. I put yo-yo traps in there. I put snares that we use for our squirrel stick. I put fishing kits, okay? All this little random stuff, toothbrush, that kind of stuff, it's all in one bag.
I brought the Phoenix PD35 for some illumination. This one throws out a huge beam, runs on CR123s, and I brought a whole fistful of those as well. Some more insulation. This right here is an item that Tyler actually turned me on to. This right here is an Army poncho. There's a lot of knockoff ponchos, and this is what he told me. A lot of knockoff ponchos, but so if you can find the right one, they are awesome. They protect you from rain, snow, anything cold, pretty much. Like, they're really bulletproof ideas. They also come with a poncho liner, and that's like a pretty thick little blanket that you can tie inside of the poncho if it's windy and rainy. I use it inside of my sleeping bag for a couple nights. That kept me really warm. It was great. We also brought a schmog, just an easy scarf for me. Schmogs have tons of uses. I'm sure you can find numerous amounts of uses for these things. It's just a bulletproof item, super cheap. I also brought some gloves. Now these, obviously, these aren't gonna offer me a lot of insulative properties, but as far as picking up wild game around here, there's quite a few species of animal that have some nasty parasites on them. You definitely don't want to be picking them up by hand. So these gloves will come in handy for that, as well as doing some woodworking, chopping, anything that's going to really mess up your hands, because your hands are the things that keep you alive. So you need to protect them as much as you can. These are mechanics gloves. Seem to work good for me.
All right, this CRKT hatchet, this is primarily a fighting hatchet, but it's got a nice little shoulder sling here, so you can just carry it there. It also doubles as a phenomenal woodsman's hatchet because of how thin and easy it is to control and use. We used this all weekend long. We split firewood with it, chopped all sorts of stuff up, made the Ojibwa traps, made the figure 4 traps, everything with that CRKT chogan right there. The knife we've been using this weekend, the primary one I've used, is the Bark River Drop Point Hunter. This is crazy sharp, and one of the main reasons is because it's a convex grind. So I brought with me a leather strop, gives me the ability to sharpen it up, and that way I can keep it, it's already polishing up. I can keep it nice and sharp while I'm in the field.
Another thing I brought a lot of, like I said, there's a lot of paracord involved. I made sure that I brought some paracord bracelets. It's not really a fashionable thing, I guess, but it always makes sure you have a lot of cord on hand. This is the Blade HQ prep cord that I've used. It has the fishing string in it as one of the 7 strands, and it works great, man. I mean, having fishing string on hand is always going to be beneficial versus not. So another thing I brought a lot of with my firearm is a lot of ammunition. This is just a small representative of what I have. I probably brought around 40 rounds with me, 40 different types of shells, you know, various types of shells that I can use for this firearm. All the way from 8 as a clay load, 8 load, all the way up to slugs, double-aught, triple-aught buck, anything that I can use to take down wild game.
The reason why I like this AA battery is because I can run this flashlight, this ham radio, and this GPS system all off of AA batteries that I get recharged in my solar panel. Okay, this is my GPS. This is the GPS I used in Afghanistan, so I'm most comfortable with it. It's a Garmin Vista HCX. You can preload an entire state's worth of topographical data on it, and you can put waypoints, trails, whatever you want to add to it, and then you can create them as you walk. I've got a couple different versions of fire. What we've used this weekend is just a very simple little striker, ferrocerium and magnesium striker, a piece of obsidian or flint, and an actual piece of metal, and then char cloth. I grabbed 2 different versions of food this weekend. One of them are Mountain House, sold by Blade HQ. We've got the chicken breast with rib meats and mashed potatoes and spaghetti with meat sauce. There's a boat ton of options for these, and they're good for any meal. MREs are nice to have because they last for about forever.
More food. I like top ramen. It makes me happy. I open it and I don't even cook it. I just leave the noodles in one big chunk and then just put the powder on it and just eat it, and it's delicious to me.
Okay. I have this little bag that I keep inside of my mess kit, and everything that comes out of an MRE or all these little piddly things that I need, I've got soap, toilet paper, chiclets, eye drops, Tabasco sauce, more cloth. This stuff just becomes really, really handy.
This is another huge essential. So this thing right here, this is what I believe to be, let's say, a level 2 first aid kit for me. Obviously, it's not the highest amount of first aid things I could have brought. However, it has pretty much everything to treat, huge, gaping wounds. I have tons of gauze in here. I have some Israeli bandages, some hand sanitizer, alcohol swabs. I have some iodine. I have lots of wraps, like I said. I have a tourniquet. I have latex gloves, everything that you're going to need to dress a wound if you need to. This is very important because if you get a wound out here, it could be death. Even a scratch can get infected, and just bringing something this small, little tiny thing of Neosporin can save your life. And you really don't take that into consideration, but you need to be thinking of these things when you go out to these places. We got a Endure Life Straw right here. This right here are my medications. I get migraines, so I got as much of it as I could and packed it in with me. I also have some Excedrin, some anti-diarrheal pills in here, as well as some allergy medications as well, so I don't have to, suffer through the wilderness here.
If you're lost and doing this type of stuff, you need a way to get found. So I have a beacon that I've used for the military. One thing that you can use on the civilian side is just get a chem light and attach it to a string. If you see something in the dark or otherwise that you need to spot you, break the chem light and spin it in a string. It makes an unnatural circle, and that will cause attention. Otherwise, using a strobe light like this, okay, that'll blind you from miles away. Compass is fairly self-explanatory. It doesn't do you very much good unless you understand what is around you. Okay, if you don't know what's to the north, it doesn't give you any good to know what's north, what direction north is. So either have a map or at least know what state you're in, then a compass becomes very valuable. I've talked a couple times about my solar panel. I just stick that out there. I've added a couple of these little cables so that I can hook it on a tree or whatever it is I want to hook it onto. A lot of times I'll hook it on my backpack as I'm walking. And this solar panel is actively recharging my AA batteries.
Another thing that I felt necessary to bring was this laser pointer. This thing works pretty well in the nighttime. I can circle objects of interest to point them out to people. I can also, it helps with a ton of different things. It's one of those things that you really don't know you needed until you start carrying it. You can find tons of uses for this type of equipment. So you definitely want to get a laser pointer if you feel the need to. I felt the need to. So some things that I have in my large pack I didn't need to carry with me in my day pack. Obviously my spare reserves of batteries, I'm just going to keep those in here. I'm going to keep a lot of my sleeping equipment, a lot of my insulative clothing in here. We're going to have some MREs, some other insulative things such as this poncho liner.
Then this last little piece I've got here, this is a lockpick kit, okay? If there's some abandoned structure or something that I need to get into or something I need to get out of, it's always nice to have a pick kit. That way you can circumvent, maybe you just locked your keys in your house. This is really, really a little handy device to leave in the back of there. All right, so we've demonstrated this earlier. This is the Sven saw. It comes in a couple different sizes. I have the smallest size because of weight. You end up having very heavy bags if you put too much stuff in it. So it's always good to have it be nice and light, as lightweight as possible. As you can see, this goes together pretty quick and easy. And I've used this quite a lot this weekend. We've chopped trees down for firewood. I've used it to create notches for our traps. It's a good thing to have if you're making a bow drill. But that guy right there is the Sven saw. Folds right up, real simple, and fairly inexpensive as well.
I also brought some garbage bags. I think these are 4 mil garbage bags. These are great for a ton of different things. You can put game you've processed in here to make sure, you know, it doesn't get too crazy, bears come after it. You can find a lot of uses for these kind of garbage bags, so make sure you carry some with you always. They take up 0 space, and they're good for a number of reasons, just like schmogs.
If you're gonna be here for a long amount of time, there are so many things that you can trap with traps, okay? This is a muskrat trap and a beaver trap. That doesn't mean that you have to use them for that exact purpose when you're doing a survival scenario, but it's just really good to have these traps and know how to use them.
Lastly, the knife that I brought out with me today was the SE3 by SE Knives. The SE3 is a great little blade. I like it. I don't like a knife too big. I like to be able to fit in my hand, and I can do some really fine cutting with it. You can process game with it. It has a real big, nice belly on it. It's made out of 1095. The edge on this coated blade here is, you know, obviously susceptible to the elements. So just wipe that down with wax, and it's good to go at all times.
Military canteen. This is one of the most important things that I've ever used when it comes to a survival scenario. There's so many functions that this does with water that I think it's indispensable. The very last thing I've got, this is a military dry bag. Okay, this is a bit old school, but I love it because I can put all of this stuff inside of it. Tie it off on top. And basically the way this works is you tie it, you fold it over, and you tie it again. And that's literally waterproof. Okay, and then the last tool I of course have is my Leatherman tool. It's just really hard to do a lot of things without something like this. And that's my kit. You're going out for an indeterminate amount of time. You need to be able to live in this new location. That's what we've tried to show in this current bug out is you have wall tents, you have more structured bug out bags, tools that you can use to make the things that you need and hunt the items that you need, and that's the more worst case scenario.
You know, and as we've been expending rounds of ammunition, I'm packing out my shells. Obviously metal can rust and break down, brass, whatever, and it can kind of reintegrate into the environment. The plastic cannot. So we're gonna pack these out and make sure that we're being responsible with nature because nature's beautiful and we need to protect and preserve as much as we can.